Hello everyone and welcome back to some more Warhammer Underworlds for the channel, and Skabbik's Plaguepack are getting their second showing on the table. This time going up against Domitan's Stormcoven. Their first time on the table. They're from the Weird Hollow starter box, the other half being Ephelm's Pandemonium. So different Stormcast Eternals this time to the ones we've seen a few times on the channel so far, the Farstriders. Totally different focus, totally different playstyle, different rivals deck, etc. But we'll look at them in detail in a moment. But first, let's quickly go over Skabbik's Plaguepack, again being led by Skabbik himself right here at the back. He is a Befouler, so is their little bonus rat friend Skritter, so is Rabidus Skench, or Stench, either way, Rabidus over here. He is also a Befouler, they need that keyword. And then we also have Itchit over here, and then we just have two filler ratties, Plague Monks here. We have Poxlix and we have Ricket over there. They corrupt areas if there is two Befoulers in either their territory, no man's land, or enemy territory, or just one is required if they're on an objective hex. I think that about covers it, other than just the things we'll see as they play. They did well in their first showing. We'll certainly see if that repeats today. Not a lot of them died last time, which definitely made it easier for them to score some of their later game objectives. If they start falling to the Stormcoven early, I think they'll have a tougher time of it. And speaking of the Stormcoven, here they are being led by Domitan, the Eye of the Storm. Here, well, technically, they've got a bit of a weird mechanic that we'll talk about in a second. To his right, camera left, kind of floating with the spear here, we have Leona Stratosi. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce her surname, but we'll just be calling her Leona. And then over here, his left, our camera right, we have Sarpon the Cyclone. So they have a couple of different ways they inspire. If there's only one of them left alive, they're permanently inspired. So one left standing, they try really hard. But after one of them activates, you can pick someone else. They inspire. If anyone was inspired, they uninspire. So they kind of share around. And I've actually used these guys once while playing online. To me, they seem to focus on doing a lot of ranged chip damage. They're very magic focused, unlike Farstriders, who are kind of a mixture of crossbows and axes, or shock axes, whatever they were called. They focus a lot more on the magic side of things, hence them being in Weird Hollow with Ephelm's Pandemonium, I guess. They're all pretty tough. They all have 4 health standard. They're all looking for shields on defense dice. They're all doing a minimum of 2 damage in close combat, and they all have range 3 magic that would do just kind of chip damage, 1 damage each. But they can do a lot of damage at range, or they can pick off a lot of people at range, I should say. It's not a lot of damage, but if a weak person is trying to run away, or say they're a Skaven that has 2 health max, there is a chance that they'll just start picking them off. So we'll certainly see if that happens today. So we are all set up and good to go. The Stormcoven are to your right, and we'll be going first. They set up first, so they had that bonus crit counting for them, because obviously it's 3 models versus 6, and they did win the roll-off. We've got Domitan himself down here, Leona here, and Sarpon. Oh, no, sorry, that's Domitan, that's Sarpon. Sorry, from the back they just look like guys in white armor, gold armor. So, over for the Plaguepack, we've got Skabbik himself right there, Rabidus there, we have, let's see, the 2 trash ones, Poxlix down here, Ricket at the back there. They've got their mascot square up the top. And who did I not mention? I didn't mention Itchit, who is right there. Again, these scenery elements are just on top of cover hexes or impassable hexes, so it's just there to brighten up the battlefield a little bit. They aren't affecting gameplay in any way. Just flipping over objectives, and then we can get started. So there is objective number 1, and down here we have objective 5, both extremes. 2 of them in no man's land. We have 3 and we have 4, so that leaves what, 2? Yep. Objective 2 right at the back there. And with that, I think we are good to get started. Round 1, Stormcoven going first. So we've got a lot to cover almost immediately, as Domitan did a charge action onto objective 4 in no man's land, and he used his Arcane Bolt, range 3, 2 dice, needing lightning bolts to do 1 damage, and he did it on poor Skritter, who managed to survive 2 or 3 attacks that should have killed him when he was on the table last time, but his luck immediately ran out this time, needing a dodge and getting a shield. So the 1 damage lightning bolt from Domitan is enough that he sizzles and frazzles and vanishes. However, Skritter does have the rule worthless. If this fighter would be taken out of action, remove it, like thusly. Clear all counters and persisting effects from him, this fighter is not taken out of action, but he is just removed. So he doesn't give up glory or anything like that, but he is removed from the table. And as far as we can tell, even though he doesn't count as getting taken out, if you have a card that still scores off the back of the action you did, that should still score. That might be incorrect, but it seems like Heaven Sent would score here. Score this immediately after a friendly fighter casts a spell and that fighter is holding an objective in no one's territory or enemy's territory, which is what he is doing. As far as we can tell, that it does still score, because the fact that he got a kill does damage doesn't play into that at all. And Skritter's description doesn't say it, it ignores what happens. He just doesn't give glory for dying, essentially. So that is a very early 1 point to the Stormcoven. So of course then we had the power phase and also handling the inspire conditions for the Stormcoven. Some more dice had to be rolled though, because starting with Domitan and playing a card first, he played Blaze of the Heavens, which is just a pretty cool looking card, honestly. It's a gambit spell. You roll looking for a swirly. If cast, choose one enemy fighter within X hexes, where X is 3 plus the number of other friendly wizards within 2 to deal 1 damage to them with a gesture. Lightning falls. So he dropped a little bit of lightning on Itchit right there and did 1 damage. But you'll notice there's a magic die next to him, because for the Plaguepack's turn, they did, what is it called? Manifestation of the Great Plague, which I think we did see last time they were on the table. Choose a friendly priest. Skabbik himself was chosen, and on a roll of 1 magical die, if it's a lightning bolt or a crit, and they're a priest, which he is, that area is instantly corrupted. And he got his lightning bolt, so Skabbik's home territory for the Plaguepack is corrupted already, so that might play into their objective cards. Then that glory got spent on giving Domitan Lightning Lash, which is also cool art. It's a reaction that anytime after he casts a spell and he dealt damage to an enemy fighter, he can push them 1 hex in any direction, presumably, because it just says push, although I guess, well, pushes is always away, isn't it? Either way, I do not enjoy war, but this is hilarious. Some of the quotes on these cards. So that is him upgraded, and when he's finished his reaction, or rather when he's finished his actions, he does a reaction called Harness the Aether. After another friendly fighter's activation, inspire this fighter, then uninspire each other friendly fighter. So rather, it's not him doing it. You pick one of the others, and it's going to be Leona. So she inspires. I don't really know what changes on her inspire side. She does a bit more damage with her magic, and she gives +1 move to friendly fighters who have the flying trait. Although I believe she's the only one with the flying trait. So essentially, she's given herself +1 movement. Oh, there was another power card or power phase play from Skabbik's Plaguepack. Unctuous Citations was played to move Skabbik and 1 friendly minion 1 hex each. He moved forwards 1, and right down the bottom here where you can't even see him, he scurried along. That's Poxlick. He moved forwards 1 hex. The first activation of 4 for Skabbik's Plaguepack was a simple one. The recently wounded Itchit activated and did a move action scurrying 4 hexes up to where you can see him at the top right of your screen. Then in the power phase, the Plaguepack were the only people to play anything. They played Festering Sneak. You choose a friendly minion to push them up to 2 hexes, but after that push they have to be adjacent to an enemy or the friendly leader. And in that regard, it was Ricket, yes, Ricket, who started over here, got pushed 2, so he's in base to base with Domitan, sorry. New names. Second activation for the Stormcoven was the Inspired Leona. I misread her buff. It's +1 move to all friendly fighters, including herself, presumably, and gives them flying, but she has flying by default, because she's just kind of gliding around on the Aether, I guess. So that made her movement 5, so she used that and the fact that she could fly to just hop over this and land on objective 5 there, and then used her range 3 magic spell. On her inspired side, she is a level 2 wizard, so rolling 2 dice, looking for swirls, of which she got 1. She attacked poor Ricket here, who just needed to roll a dodge or a crit, rolled a double support rather, which is not a success. So he took 2 damage, because it does extra damage on her inspired side, meaning that he just got frazzled to a crisp, and he does give up a glory, which is being used in the power phase to apply Blades of Azure? I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Blades of something to her. This fighter's range 2 attack actions are range 3 and have stagger. So her basic attack is now range 3. But at the end of her turn, Sarpon is inspiring. meaning that she uninspires. So she's back down to like base stats. But that seems to immediately score Channel the Storm, which is scoreless immediately after your second or subsequent friendly fighter became inspired in the same round. So presumably, because it's a surge, it happens right now, because this is the point at which Sarpon inspires, and he is the second one for the turn. So that already puts them on 3 glory, and the Plaguepack are down 2 rats. So not exactly a bombastic retort from the Plaguepack. Their second activation was another move action, this time for Poxlix to run forward 4 hexes from where he was, which was 1 forward from where he started, and has moved right next to Sarpon, who is inspired, so it's a little dangerous, but on his inspired side, his spells still only do 1 damage. His physical attack, however, does do 2, so he's definitely not safe if he decides to go that route, but that's all they're doing, and neither side is playing any power cards. Sarpon activated, of course, because he has to, because he doesn't have a charge icon. He stayed where he was and simply used his Arcane Bolt. Now, on his inspired side, his basic attack gets a roll called Scouring, which makes it do +1 damage, but that's a physical attack, and he's focusing on spells for reasons presumably objective based. He was looking for swirls, got 2 of them, but he needed a crit, because then it would have had Grievous, and it would have done enough to kill Itchit, because he whiffed his defense roll. But as he only rolled successes, normal successes, 1 damage means that Itchit is very much alive. Now that did lead to whether or not you have to do a reaction to inspire someone else, because Sarpon would like to remain inspired for now. It seems like that's fine, because you don't have to do the reactions, since they both have the same reaction, where if a friendly fighter finishes activating, you can inspire. Obviously they both can do it, so it must be optional. So we're playing it that he can choose to remain the one inspired. If that's wrong, apologies, but it seems like that should be okay. And we're staying down here. Third activation for the Plaguepack was Rapidus, who was next to his boss here. He did a move action on the far side of Sarpon, which means they're now supporting each other down here. And more importantly, because he did their third or subsequent movement action in the same phase, they scored their first card, which is Scuttling Horde. They're also spending that 1 glory immediately to give Rapidus the Bursting Sores upgrade. Just means if he's successfully hit, he can pick an enemy within 2 hexes to just do 1 true damage to them. There's the full text if you want it. So they're on the scoreboard now, they've got an upgrade out, and at least Itchit is supported if Sarpon decides to immediately smack him as the last thing this turn for the Stormcoven. I guess we'll see in a second. So naturally, the final activation of the first round for the Stormcoven was Sarpon activating again and trying to fry another rat by finishing off Itchit. He got 1 success on his level 2 magic, and a crit means that no damage was done. Didn't even need the support from Rapidus up there, so denied a score by doing that. However, as he ends his turn, he is uninspiring, and Leona is re-inspiring. They don't have an activation left, but it is purposeful, so they can do the reaction regardless of the fact they've charged, it seems like. So he is no longer inspired now, but the Plaguepack still have 1 more activation for the round. It was Skabbik himself to activate last. There wasn't really, well, there was a choice because everyone else had movement actions. He did a charge though, onto objective 3, although more so just to get adjacent to Sarpon, and then took a swing with his warp staff, 2 dice needing hammers, got 2 of his ratty friends supporting him, which is just as well because the only success he rolled was a single support, but Sarpon managed to whiff his defense roll with also rolling a single support, so he took 2 damage from the warp staff, banging him upside the head. If the crit had gotten through, it had Grievous, so it would have done an extra bit of damage, but that's half his health gone right there. Not scoring anything on that action, no power cards either, but there's going to be scores in both, or from both sides, in the end phase. So at the end of round 1, the Plaguepack didn't do too great during that because they've lost 2 of their number and 2 more are very nearly dead, although the Stormcoven have almost lost 1 of their fighters. However, the Plaguepack are scoring really well in the end phase. That's what they were working towards. First of all, they're scoring, well, first of all, let's handle the corruption mechanic actually. They cast a spell that corrupted their home territory. Skabbik is on an objective in No Man's Land, and he is a Befouler, so that means that's corrupted until the end of the next round. And there is 2 Befoulers in the Stormcoven's territory. We have Rapidus, and up there we have, I always forget his name, Itchit. So that's also corrupted. A Leader's Privilege is scoring for 1 glory. Scorpius in the end phase if 2 or more friendly minions are within 2 of a friendly leader and they're in no man's land or enemy territory. That's happening right down here. It would not have had Poxlix rather been killed, and more importantly they're scoring a massive 3 for Bringers of Ruination. Scorpius in the end phase if 3 or more territories are corrupted by their warband, and there are. thanks to that spell. If that spell hadn't cast, or if Poxlix had died, this wouldn't have scored. So they went from barely scoring anything to suddenly having 5 in total for that. So, or should that be 4? Either way. No, it is 5 because they scored 1 during the round from the movement. The Stormcoven are scoring Knights Arcanum for 2. So it's actually keeping things even with that score. Scorpius in the end phase of 1 or more inspired friendly fighters are each holding an objective in enemy's territory. That's why Leona inspired right at the end of the round there. She's in a objective hex in enemy territory. So that scored for 2, meaning we go into round 2, although the Plaguepack has obviously suffered losses, both sides are on 5 glory apiece. So everything to play for. At the top of round 2 of a total of 3, the Stormcoven are once again taking first activation. We're just going to cover some glory spending on upgrades right now. The Stormcoven are spending to give Domitan Electrokinesis. It's an upgrade only for him, no one else is allowed to have it. It gives him access to that range 3 dice, knockback 2? Yeah, knockback 2, 1 damage, and reaction during his attack action after the drive back step, stagger each enemy within 1 hex of the target. So it's a good way to hand out stagger, but again it's more chip damage because that's kind of their thing. The Plaguepack is buying 2 upgrades. They're giving Rotted Flesh to Skabbik, which is lovely. You can't give it to a large fighter. -1 damage to a minimum of 1 for enemy fighter attack actions that target this fighter while he's in a territory that's corrupted, which right now for this round is everywhere. So that gives him a little bit more chance of living. He's got 4 health and now he's taking 1 less damage to a minimum of 1 from attacks. And, oh, it fell on the floor, but Itchit is being given Voice of the Great Corruptor. It has to be given to him. It makes him a priest, so give him the priest keyword. It also means that if Skabbik is killed, Itchit becomes the leader, and also as an action he can just flat out corrupt the area he's in. Itchit is the one who ran away up there. Oh, that has a move token that didn't get removed when the round cleanup happened. So he can be a backup leader if Skabbik has something befall him, like lightning striking him from the sky, for instance. So I think that covers everything. Let's get on with round 2. Well, making up for not being able to do it after 2 attempts in round 1, Sarpon activated first, and despite being surrounded on all sides almost by rats, he just unleashed his basic arcane bolt, 2 dice needing swirls for a single point of damage. He got a crit. That double support is a success because there's 2 rats supporting Poxlix, but because of that crit, it went through for 1 damage, splatting him with lightning from the heavens for 1 glory, but then also scoring an additional glory for the Scouring Arcs card, which is what he was trying so hard for last round. Scores immediately after an enemy fighter is taken out of action by damage dealt by a spell. Is something cooking? I think these people are a little bit arrogant. I'm fine with that. At the end of his turn, Domitan, who's up there on objective 4, is inspiring, and Leona is uninspiring. First activation of the second round from the Plaguepack was Skabbik himself, trying to finish the job he started at the tail end of round 1, and thanks to being supported by Rabidus, he did. 2 single supports were rolled with that Warp Staff attack. He is still being supported by 1 person, meaning they're both successes, and Sarpon whiffed his defense roll. That is 2 more damage, a bonk on the head from that Warp Stone, and that takes him out. So that is 1/3 of the Stormcoven's strength gone right there, and 1 glory gained by the Plaguepack. Oh, apologies, there was 1 power phase card. Expeditious Assistance was played by the Plaguepack. The first attack or defense roll, so it'll be a defense roll, presumably, made by a friendly fighter in the next activation has the innate single supports count as successes. At the top end of the board, Domitan activated, stayed where he was, and did a Arcane Bolt. He was looking for a crit success, so the Grievous would kick in and make it do 2 damage, not 1. He did roll 2 successes, and he did it on Itchit over there, who whiffed his defense. He was looking for a dodge. So that is 1 damage, but he is a rat with 3 health, not 2, so he's actually still alive on 1 health remaining. So he managed to live through the attack, and then in the power phase, Pillar of Lightning was played. Didn't have the dice left on the table after doing this. Looking for a lightning bolt. If cast, pick a feature token within 4 and it becomes a lethal hex for the enemy until someone takes damage or the end of the round. Tried to do that on objective 2 just to potentially disrupt plans, but wasn't able to cast it. Well, who knows what is planning, but second activation for the Plaguepack was Itchit, and in an effort to survive and get out of the threat range of Domitan, who I forgot to mention, when he finished his activation, Leona inspired. He uninspired He just did a movement action literally into the top rightmost hex of the table and didn't do anything else. So despite not being the one inspired, Domitan activated again. Neither of them have charge tokens, so both of them are fair game to activate. He stayed where he was and fired an arcane bolt, range 3, 2 magic dice, needing lightning bolts for 1 singular point of damage. This time, of course, he got the crit when it doesn't have Grievous because he's not on his inspired side, but he got 2 good successes, and he did it on, not Skabbik, on Rabidus down here, who whiffed his defense roll, so he took a massive 1 damage. However, he then played the power card, which is why there's a 3rd magic die there just to show it did succeed. He played Lightning Tether. If you get the lightning symbol, play this after a fighter's successful spell attack action. After the drive back step, he opted not to drive back. If cast, deal 1 damage to each enemy adjacent to the target. So Skabbik also managed to take 1 damage, and he takes 1 damage reduced to a minimum of 1. So either way, managed to do a little bit of damage, but not much else. Bit of an odd one, but the next activation, second last for the Plaguepack this turn, was Itchit, who did a movement action again, his second movement action of the round, and just moved right down here, still out of Domitan's threat radius over there. Oh, speaking of which, again, totally forgot, but he re-inspired after his last activation, because as far as I can tell that's also still allowed, because you can react after your own turn, so he is re-inspired and Leona is not. Last activation of the second round, Domitan activated, did a charge action, running from objective 4 back onto objective 2, mostly just to get in range to try and shoot a lightning bolt at Itchit. Got 1 success, was again looking for that crit to get the Grievous proc. This time Itchit did mess up his defense roll though, so he took 1 more damage. That's him on 2 in total of his 3 health. That little rat is just scurrying everywhere. Final action or activation for the Plaguepack in the second of 3 rounds. Itchit moved for a 3rd time. He's hiding down there behind the impassable scenery, just trying to get away from Domitan for objective card reasons. So at the end of the second round, both sides are scoring 1 card in the end phase. Knights Victorious is being scored by the Stormcoven. Scoreless in the end phase if your warband holds 1 or more objectives in enemy territory, which Domitan does, and 1 or more enemy fighters were taken out of action by damage dealt by a spell. Prior to being murderized, Sarpon did exactly that, so that is 2 glory for that card. The Plaguepack are scoring Corrupting the Land. Scoreless in the end phase if no man's land and or enemy's territory are corrupted. Well, every territory would have become uncorrupted, but then Skabbik re-corrupts no man's land, and Rabidus and Itchit re-corrupt the Stormcast's land. So that's still 2 of them that are going to be counting as corrupted in the final turn. As we go into the final turn, it is 2, 4, 6, 7 for the Plaguepack, playing 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 for the Stormcoven. So they're a little bit ahead, but still everything to play for. Top of the final battle round, and the rats, the 3 of them that are surviving and kind of huddled in the southeast corner of the map, have taken first activation. There is some glory being spent on upgrades that we'll just cover now. Glorious Sacrifice is being given to Itchit since his death seems to be on the Stormcast's mind. It just means that if he dies, the territory he's in will be corrupted, unless it's already corrupted, in which case you get 1 glory point. So right now he is in a corrupted territory, so it would not be a good idea to kill him. The Stormcast, though, they're spending 3 glory on 3 different upgrades. The Liber Fulminus is being given to Leona. Just means she has extra range on her spell attack actions. And then 2 for Domitus. He's getting an Electrified Grasp, which is just a very hard to avoid attack. It only does 1 damage, but it also staggers, it ignores blocks, dodges, etc. So it's got a very high chance of actually getting through. And he's being given Scrolls of the Spellseeker, which means when he rolls spell dice, he can count them all as lightning bolts, which is what he needs for his successes. So basically guarantees he'll be doing some consistent damage. I think that covers everything. Let's get on with it. Well, to get the final round started, Itchit activated and I guess found his fighting spirit, because he did a charge action to get right next to Domitan. I keep on calling him Domitus, I apologise. It's Domitan. And took a swing at him, needing swords though, so he actually just whiffed entirely. I did forget though that honestly at the end of the first round, when 2 areas corrupted, because there was 3 areas corrupted at the end of round 1, the Plaguepack should have inspired. Totally forgot about that. So that is doing them a dirty. None of them gain more health on their flip sides, so it wouldn't have saved them from the damage they've received, but there would have been more chance at them dealing damage, although they haven't really been focusing on that, to be honest, just because of the objective cards they've had. But that was something that was forgotten. For Itchit, on his flip side, it just means that he would have done one more damage with his attack that missed regardless, so it doesn't really make a difference. Well, Domitan apparently didn't care that if Itchit died, he would give up a glory point for the, what was it called, Glorious Sacrifice upgrade. So he splatted him. He just did a normal arcane bolt, got a success and a crit. Still only rolling one die on his inspired side anyway, so again, didn't make any difference really. That is Itchit gone, with the last of his health being sapped. So that means he gives one glory to the Stormcast for dying. He gives one glory to his own side because of the Glorious Sacrifice. And the Useful Distraction card actually also scores for the Plaguepack. Scores immediately after an activation in which a friendly minion was supporting a friendly fighter or a surviving friendly minion was the target of an attack action. The latter is true. Doesn't say he has to die from it, just has to be the target of it. So they're actually a total of 1 up because they gained 2, the Stormcast gained 1 on that attack. But they do lose an aggressively positioned rat in the, well, close to where Domitan is. When he finished his activation, Leona inspired, he uninspired. Well, that activation was actually even worse because Spreading Filth also scored for the Plaguepack. It's another surge. Score this immediately after an opponent's activation step if there are 1 or more friendly fighters in 2 or more territories. Skabbik is in No Man's Land and Rabidus is in enemy territory. And 1 or more of the enemy fighters are out of action. Sarpon is, so that actually scored for another 1. So they scored 3 off of that activation versus Domitan's 1. Second activation for the Plaguepack was Rabidus, who did a charge action up to Domitan and took a swing with that Plague Sensor. Totally forgot how deadly that is on his inspired side. 2 dice, needing hammers, he got 2 hammers, for 3 damage. So even though he got 1 success, that is trumped by 2. So Domitan took 3 of his 4 health there. But then in the power phase, that's why there's a magic die there, Rancid Vomit was played, a very powerful card. Roll 1 magic die on the roll of a swirl. Choose an enemy fighter adjacent to 1 or more friendly befoulers and deal 2 damage to them. So that means that Domitan is, taking an objective with him for 1, but is also dead for 1 glory. And that means Leona is now permanently inspired. In the power phase, they went on to spend 2 spells on Leona, because she's the only one alive. They both last until the end of the round and did succeed. The dice are out of line of sight, but they're over by her. So she is -1 dice from any attack actions to a minimum of 1 made by anyone adjacent to her. It persists until the end of the round. And she also has a Celestial Blade. Now, if cast, choose 1 friendly fighter, obviously her because she's the last one standing. You can choose to reroll 1 die in this fighter's attack rolls, and again that persists till the end of the game because this is the final round. So she is angry. Well, thanks to that +1 movement, giving her 5 movement, Leona charged across the battlefield with lightning blasting from every orifice, getting within range to fire a Aetherite bolt into Rabidus, getting 1 success, which he did fail to block, doing 2 damage to him, which means he is out of there. It does mean his Bursting Source kicks in, but I believe that has to be adjacent. Use this after an activation step if the fighter was dealt damage in the preceding activation. Choose an enemy fighter within 2 hexes. Oh no, okay, it does count. So she took 1 damage from that of her 4 health. She gained 1 glory for taking him out though, and that's it. So it's just her and Skabbik left on the table. I think for both sides now there's nothing in this except the glory for getting a kill. So Skabbik did a charge action, scurrying 4 to be adjacent to Leona, taking a swing, 3 dice needing swords for 2 damage with Grievous, I think, yeah. But only got 1 success, and she deftly blocked. She gets 2 defense dice on her inspired side needing shield, so both successes. She took it to the face and is still very, very angry. Slap fight continues with Leona cracking out her, what is it called? Bident, her spear, the spear she's equipped with. Getting 2 successes, needing hammers for 2 damage. Skabbik did get a success, but not enough to counter 2 successes on the attacking side. So he took 2 damage, that's him up to 3. He's got 1 health left. Even if he lands a successful hit in his final attack action, that's not enough to kill her unless he gets a crit, so procs the Grievous. So I guess we'll see what happens. Oof, not only did he not roll a crit, but he actually just missed entirely with his final attack. So it comes down to, will Leona get a little bit of vengeance at the end here and remove the Clan Pestilence threat from wherever it is they're fighting? We'll see. She's got one attack in her with 2 dice. You know what, let's just roll it. Let's just roll it live. Get rid of these dice out of here. 2 dice, needing hammers. Well, she whiffed as well. Oh wait, but she has that upgrade for 1 reroll. Alright, well now she got a crit, so now it matters. So Skabbik needs a crit on 1 die, or he dies. Well, it was a success for the record. Hang on, just proving it. There it is there. But it was not a crit. So at the very last second, Skabbik gets struck down by the spear to the chest for 1 more glory. No cards, but 1 more glory for the Stormcast, what's left of the Stormcoven anyway. And that takes us to the end of the game, the final end phase. So at the end of the game, last person standing, Leona. There's a single end phase card being scored by the Stormcoven. Score this in an end, it's called Thunderstruck. You've been thunderstruck. Score this in the end phase if 3 or more enemy fighters each have 1 or more wound counters or are out of action. Honestly lads, I've been rethinking this whole thing. So that is 1 more glory gained for the sole survivor on the table. Nothing being scored by the Plaguepack, meaning their final score is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, playing 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 13. So super close. 2 points in it. 1 more card. If Rabidus hadn't gone down, would they have scored anything? No. Yes, actually, if he was on an objective event in enemy territory or friendly territory, they would have scored 2, which would have made it a draw. But that only would have made it a draw. It wouldn't have made it a win. But that is going to do it for this time. First showing for the Stormcast. Well, this particular band of Stormcast, the Stormcoven, Domitan's Stormcoven. I like them. I like just the fact that they shoot lightning everywhere. They got kind of lucky with when they drew certain objective cards there, for sure. They have a lot more of a tough time if they're going up against a hard-hitting warband, at least from the experience I've had with them in the one time I've played them. But either way, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to show your support if you want to see more Underworlds on the channel. And if you want to go above and beyond to support what we do here, consider becoming a channel member to get some exclusive content, or pressing the thanks button. It all helps out and is reinvested into the channel to keep the lights on and purchase new minis. Thank you for watching though, and until next time, ta-ta for now.